Welcome back, creative friends. Today we're diving into the importance of a good first meeting with a new graphic design client and how having the right structure to your onboarding process can take your practice to the next level. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Beck. I am a full-time senior creative designer for one of Australia's largest kids fashion brands, as well as a freelance graphic designer, illustrator, and content creator. I've been working professionally as a graphic designer since 2019, and I have learned and grown a lot over those years. And I still continue to learn and grow every single day. The beauty of being a graphic designer. Studying graphic design at uni teaches you a lot of great skills around design principles and how to make things look really good. But it wasn't until I got out into the real world as a graphic designer that I started to learn the importance of having productive client meetings and being able to actually work well with clients. Believe me, I have worked with many a freelance client where I thought I had enough information to forge ahead and start working on the project, but in hindsight, I definitely didn't. I think I was almost working selfishly, sort of creating work for clients based on a trend that I liked at the time or a style that I was really enjoying working with. I never took enough time to delve really deeply into what my client wanted for their brand or their project that I was working on for them. And I think looking back, it's a huge miss. And hopefully this video today can help you start to build a bit of a structure around how you can get your best foot forward for any client meetings you have coming up. I'm going to give you a bit of a framework today that you can take with you when you are onboarding your next client. And now I say framework because how you're going to onboard and work with a client is probably going to be so different from designer to designer and also client to client. So merely take this as a set of dot points that you can take with you to sort of check in along your onboarding and graphic design project process to make sure that you're using your time with your client productively and make sure you're set up for success. Let's get into it. All right. So before I give you a framework of what an onboarding or first meeting with a client might look like, let's have a little bit of a quick look at what a common graphic design onboarding process might look like. So before you even get to that first meeting with a client, how do you even get there? This is kind of how some of my or most of my client onboarding and first initial requests from new clients come about. So this will be different from person to person, kind of based on how you get a lot of your work. So I get a lot of my work via word of mouth or social media. So this is how my process looks sort of currently and has looked in the past. So it'll look different from person to person. This is kind of the steps that you will find where you'll come across before you get to that first meeting. So let's have a look at that stack. So step one, you will usually get an email or a DM or just a face-to-face request for a piece of graphic design work from yourself. To be perfectly honest, it's probably more than likely going to be pretty vague. So a client might say they want a logo, they want some branding, they want a poster design, they want an illustration. They might give you a very rough idea of that it's for their brand and or business and what that is. And if you're lucky, they'll send you a reference or two of something that they've seen in real life or online that they like the look of that you can then use as a reference when you work on that eventually. There's not been many times that I've had in my first reach out email from a client references that they love. That's kind of part of what your job is to help them kind of see the vision or realize that vision. Step two, you'll reply to that email. Hopefully it's to say that you'd love to work with them. Don't be afraid to start asking some initial questions for a bit more context if this is going to help you understand what they're after at a top level. So if they're asking for a poster, double check that they have all of the information required to put on the poster, or if that's still something that they need to confirm. Ask them what size the posters might be, if they're going to be printed at multiple sizes, are they going to actually be printed or be digital only? Just try and get some top level idea because this will also start to help you understand how big of a project it's going to be. Step 3, they will reply to that email and give you the answers to the questions that you've asked, hopefully. This is also usually the point where a lot of clients will maybe ask how much you charge. Now, this stage is not when I would actually give a estimated total for the project. I would say you still don't have quite enough information to give an accurate estimate to a client here. So to kind of save your butt from undervaluing yourself, I will sometimes just give them my hourly rate. So at least that they're aware of how much it might cost per hour. I'll need some time to put together a proper estimate for you to make sure that we're super aligned on the potential cost. Step 4 is when you are going to start setting up a meeting with your client. So if you feel you've got enough context now from your client, you feel that they are really interested in working with you, hence them asking how much you charge, now is a perfect time to set up an initial meeting to really have a good chat and fully understand their brand. I think also having the initiative to put in that initial meeting and everything is great from a client perspective because they know that you're really invested and really keen to understand their brand, their ethos, their business, so that you can do your best work for them. So I'll normally send an email back to the potential client with a list of dates and times that work for me for a meeting. Try and give them as big a range as you can while still keeping it quite tight. I think it's good to give them maybe like 4 or 5 options so that they have flexibility to work with that within their own schedule as well. Of course, that's super important, but you don't want to overwhelm them with just being like, when do you want to do it? Like, because then they could come back and say this time and you go, well, I'm not available that time. And then it's a lot of back and forth. So make sure you kind of keep a nice concise list, considering working hours. So normally between 9 to 5. Us freelancers, you'll be working till like 11 o'clock at night sometimes. Obviously, clients and some people probably aren't going to be working during those hours. So try and find time between 9 to 5 or just consider your clients' working arrangements when you're putting that together. I usually just set up a quick Google Meet link because I use Google Calendar and I use Gmail. So that makes it super easy to set that up and anyone can access a Google Meet. Also in this email is a great opportunity to ask your client to bring along any references or any other information and details that you believe will be important to help you understand the brief. It'll mean you can kick off this meeting with a really good head start and not be fluffing around for too long. You probably don't want the meeting to take any more than like 45 minutes. That's usually all you would need. That's going to differ from client to client, but that's usually how I start for an onboarding meeting. Then lucky last, you get to prepare for the meeting. Now it's all locked in. The client has approved the meeting request. You get to walk away and start preparing for the meeting. And that now is where we're going to get into how to set up for a really good onboarding first meeting with a graphic design client. Let's get into it. Now, talking to a graphic design client, a new client, is scary. I'm not going to lie, it's really scary. I wasn't setting up and didn't set up face-to-face or video calls or anything with clients for years because I was genuinely too scared to. I think it was a bit of imposter syndrome. It was a bit of like, I don't know how to talk to someone about this stuff. Like, what do you mean? Like, they're just going to tell me they want a logo and I'll just go and make the logo and that's it. And then I can just email them along the way and blah, blah, blah. I think we're also a generation that's like scared to call the doctor. You know, like it's just kind of part of all of that. But I think it's super important to show a level of professionalism, build trust in your client, and show that you have a level of confidence in your ability to be able to achieve their goals. I think the best way to tackle that little bit of fear is to have a set agenda for your meeting. It means that you're not guessing as you go into the meeting. You're not having to make anything up on the fly. Your client will understand what is going to be happening, what the key points are going to be of the meeting, so they know what to expect. So it just really keeps a really tight ship and stops you from kind of second guessing yourself and making sure that you are getting all the information you need while you're in the room. So an agenda might look something like this. So you'll start with like your introductions. This is the first time that you're actually chatting with each other face to face. So it's not the first time they've probably seen your face because they would have seen you on socials or somewhere. Probably the first time you're going to see their face. So it's always a little bit of like, oh my God, hi, like, great to put a face to the name. Gotta love starting with that. And really just like reintroduce yourself, ask them to introduce themselves to you, what their position is in the business, whether they own it, whether they're in their marketing team, any of that kind of stuff. So really start to build a good base and understanding of who they are, because they're the person you're going to be dealing with through this whole project. So you kind of want to just know who they are, know what they're about. Secondly, it's great to start with a little bit of a recap of the design project. So what the client has requested so far, just basically the information you have, and just going through it all, recapping. You can even go back to the initial email from that client that gives a breakdown of the deliverables they were after. Now comes my favorite part of a real life client meeting. And this is where a lot of the juicy information you're going to need is going to be. You're going to ask the client to tell you all about the brand's ethos, mission statement, their customer, what they want people to feel when they see their brand, what services or products they provide, what their favorite products are that they provide, all of this stuff. As much information that they can give you about who they are is going to be so invaluable. And on this, please be taking notes the entire time, or ask if you can record the meeting while it's happening. That is a really, really great way to make sure that you don't miss anything. I think sometimes you can get really in it and like be chatting to the client and back and forth and stuff, and then realize you forgot to take notes. And then you think back and go, oh, I know they said this really important thing that could be really helpful to my design, but I've completely forgotten it. Sometimes you can just record the meeting and then you can just go back and rewatch it and really make sure you have all the information you need from that. Otherwise, take notes, please take notes. Now, this might be different from person to person, designer to designer, but I actually like to start spitballing in this initial meeting. When I say spitballing, I mean just like if anything comes up while you're chatting to your client about this, if they bring up something about their customer that you think is like, oh my God, that would be amazing if we could include some kind of motif that spoke to that specific customer, say it, throw it out there, say, oh my God, actually, I'm picturing this thing, or like, wouldn't that be so cool if we could just like combine those two elements of your brand and bring it in here, like spitball, because this is also an opportunity for you to start like getting a vibe, basically. Don't be afraid to start chatting about ideas and concepts. This can be happening through the entire meeting. I usually try and like hold off until like the second half or towards the end when I have all the information first. But then if you like throw something out there and the client goes, oh yeah, maybe, but maybe more like this, like that's already starting to give you a steer as to what you can do for them. And it'll give you some really great yeses and some really great no's. No's are so important. So I think spitballing is so fine for an onboarding meeting. It also will show that you're like excited to work on the project and already are inspired and have great ideas, which I think is really refreshing for a client to see that, oh my gosh, okay, they're already starting to think about this. And if you're completely off track, they can re-correct you. So I think it's a really good opportunity. Start spitballing. On that, this is also a great time to start discussing non-negotiables. So these are things that must or must not be in the final deliverable. So the client might have a color they hate, or their brand language, it's really important to speak in this way and not this way. So speak in a fun way, not aggressively, like not aggressive language. Like those are really important to make sure you note down so that you know what you must and must not include in the final designs. Now, once you have all the information you need, it's time to set expectations. So chat to your client about what their timelines are, when they expect the work to be done or when they would like it to be done. And if it's unrealistic, chat about that and say, look, I think to make something that's really long lasting and really great, it might take me like a month and a half to 2 months to put that together. And if that's not going to work for them, it's not going to work for them. Then say, right, well, maybe we just start with a logo then. Like I can do that in 2 weeks or something, start to negotiate and set expectations. You shouldn't have to burn yourself out just to have and keep clients. So make sure you're setting those expectations there. Once you've chatted about your timeline and you set those expectations, it's time to kind of sign off. it's time to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all this information. I'm so excited to start working on this project. And if you're happy to go ahead, I can put together an estimate for you that I can send through as soon as possible. And yeah, just make sure that you're definitely on the same page signing off at that point. Let them know that you will start putting in meetings or check-in times with them, kind of give them a rundown of how then the process will happen going forward. Thank them for their time, and then hooroo, that's your first meeting done. Now, this is like an extra little tidbit that I really wanted to include because I think it's important, especially if you're freelancing. You set the tone. So I think the idea of a meeting and also like just the idea of hosting a meeting can feel like it has to be really formal and professional and all this kind of stuff, and that's kind of scary. If you're freelancing, you are the brand and you set the tone. So if your brand and your personality is like bubbly and fun and you make jokes, which is kind of me and my personality, that's how I run a meeting. I don't go into it and go, okay, well, we're chatting about this today. What is your brand about? Okay, great, I'll write that down. And like, that's not me, that's not my brand, that's not my personality. So that's not how I approach it. I approach it as a casual chat. Yeah, it's so important to just remember that you're setting the tone. There's no pressure for the meeting to be one way or another. You just be yourself. Like, that's what they're employing you for. So make sure that you set the tone and you're comfortable. So good luck out there. Design is scary and exciting and it's ever evolving. But no matter what kind of design you're doing, there will always be work out there for you. So the best thing you can do in the meantime that's fully in your control is be prepared. Be ready to show up with a level of professionalism and confidence that's going to build trust in your clients and leave you feeling inspired to create some of your best work. Until next time, stay creative.